In this video, I'm going to cover some of the basics of creating charts in Excel 2013, and we're going to be creating a pie chart for one of our first charts in this tutorial. So just some things about charts and chart elements, which are just parts of a chart, and you can see on the screen just a quick overview. Keep in mind that when we are creating charts, you can embed the chart within the spreadsheet where you have the data. You can also put the chart on a separate sheet as well within the Excel workbook, and that would be called a chart sheet. Also, when creating a chart, it does become more of a visual representation of the data that you normally have in your spreadsheet. Sometimes that just tells the bigger picture of what's happening in various segments of a business. And so that's why we tend to use charts. It gives that visual impact of what's really going on with numbers. You'll also have, besides a chart that could be embedded within the data, various elements within that chart as well. You'll have the chart title. You'll also have an area within the chart that will contain the data labels, which are the numbers that you see listed here. And then how we actually do the editing of the chart is through various tabs, or it could be the format pane that you see on the right. So let me just go ahead and go over a few things about charts. And this is another overview of some of the chart elements. As I mentioned previously, is that you can go through the various tabs underneath the chart tools. Now in 2013 they have only two tabs, the design and format. If you're working off 2010, you'll have a third tab, and honestly I forgot the name of it, but it will be right after format. In 2010 we don't have the format pane on the right hand side. So this is new to 2013 and tends to take the place of that third tab that we had in 2010. So if you're working on 2010, you won't have anything like this at all on the right hand side called the format pane. You'll have that third tab up here at the top where you can make changes to various elements of a chart, such as the legends, the axis, the grid lines, the data labels, and so on. So just keep that in mind as you're creating charts. 2013, 2010, they are different where they place some of those features, but the features themselves are actually the same. Now when you're creating a chart, again, keep in mind charts do show trends or relationships between data, and it does make it easier to quickly capture what's happening. There are at least 5 steps that you're going to go through when creating a chart. You're going to select the data to display the chart, so you have to have some numbers and some labels, whether it's in rows or columns, that indicate what that data represents. You choose the chart type that you're going to create, and then you either specify where that chart's going to go by either moving it and position it within the spreadsheet where that data is located or on a separate chart, and then obviously resizing it. And then the last thing you do is you format it. That's the pretty part of it. So keep in mind these 5 steps are the steps that you would normally follow when creating a chart. Now when creating a chart, the data source needs to come from your spreadsheet, and you can see in this example where I'm selecting, or where they are selecting, the column headings, because that becomes part of various chart elements such as your legends. So that's very important, not just the numbers but also the column headings as well. When you are creating charts, keep in mind that there are over 53 types of charts, and the type of chart that you choose really depends on how your data is laid out and what you're trying to communicate. So within the 53 types of charts, they are grouped or categorized into 10 categories, and there's also what we call subtypes as well with those charts, and you'll see that later on as you're working through creating charts and some of the assignments. Now when creating a chart, these are the different types that you can go through or that you can create. Note the first column indicates the chart type, and the second column is the description. And again, a lot of it does depend on how the data is laid out in your worksheet and what you're trying to communicate. You might have several different charts from some of the same data, and again, it does depend on how you lay it out. I have found in the past that sometimes reestablishing a different layout of the numbers helps in creating a better looking chart, so keep that in mind as well. So let's go ahead. We're going to create a chart, and the first way we're going to create a chart is we're going to create a pie chart. We're going to use the quick analysis tool to create the pie chart. Now keep in mind this is something new with 2013, so if you have 2010, that quick analysis tool does not exist. You'll have to go ahead and do it through the insert tab to create the chart. So let me go ahead and navigate to our spreadsheet. Now on this spreadsheet, this is a spreadsheet on funds and investments, and you can see that we have some investment categories. So we have cash, U.S. stocks, non-U.S. stocks, bonds, and other assets. In the second column, This is a list of the value of those assets, and note that I highlighted not just the row headings with the values, but the column headings as well. So your first step is to select the data, including your column and row headings. Note I am not highlighting the totals because I do not want to plot that 89,000 in with those slices. Now when doing a pie chart you are only plotting one set of values, which means these numbers have the same representation. They represent assets. So if I had a second column of data, then I would not be creating a pie chart. I would be creating something like a column chart or a line chart. So once you've highlighted the data that you're going to plot, including the column and row headings, you're going to click on this Quick Analysis tool. And from the Quick Analysis tool, you're going to choose Charts. And then from Charts, you're going to go ahead and choose the type of data. Now I'm going to go ahead and choose Pie. And note that when I hover over the Pie option, it gives me a preview of what it's going to look like. So I'm going to go ahead and select Pie by clicking on it, and everything's a left click. Keep in mind that it's always going to place the chart within the same worksheet of your data. We're not going to worry about moving this around right now. So what we're going to do is start playing with some of the elements that we want to add to this chart. So note that with this chart, I have it selected, and I can tell I have it selected because I have the selection handles on the corners in the middle of each side. Also at the very top, you'll see that your chart tools is now displayed with two of the tabs. So this is one of those type of buttons or tabs that will show up only when that particular element is selected. So if I click off of the pie chart, my chart tools go away. So you must select that particular element for that chart tool grouping to display with the Design and Format tab. And again, as I alluded before in this video, if you're on Excel 2010, you'll have a third tab to the right that you'll be working with as well. Now, new to 2013 with charts is you're going to have these chart element buttons that you can select, and each of these three buttons represent something different. So if I go to the plus sign, which is the first button that we have, you'll note that it says chart elements. So I'm just going to left click and click on chart elements. Now your chart elements will vary based on the type of chart that you're creating. So in this case, I have a pie chart, so I only have three elements to choose from. I have the chart title, the data labels, and the legend. Now note, as I hover over each of these, it's going to go ahead and display that particular element, even though I haven't clicked on it yet. If I want to keep the data labels there, which is just pulling the numbers from the spreadsheet, then I click on the check box to put that check next to it to indicate, yes, I want to keep those data labels. Now, as I move down to legend, which is down there below the pie chart that shows what each of the color slices represent, I can click on the check mark to remove it, and then the legend goes away. Now, obviously, you're going to want to have a legend. Note when I turn it back on, it places the legend on the right-hand side. That is normally the default. So if I wanted to place it back down at the bottom, I also want you to note to the right of each of these chart elements in this particular button, there is an arrow. When you click on the arrow, it's going to expand to another menu of choices. And again, this replaces the 2010 version where you just had pull-down menus. Now the menus are to the right of the particular element that you're working with. So I'm going to go ahead and choose bottom to place it back down at the bottom. Now on the chart title, let's say that I'd like to change that chart title. One of the things I do like about charts is I don't always have to go through menus. I can just click on that particular part of the chart and make the changes. So in this case, for the chart title, I'm going to click one time to select it. And then I'm going to click again to position my insertion point. And I'm just going to delete the word assets. And I'm going to go ahead and type New Century Funds. Okay. So you can easily just click on any of the text elements, such as the chart title, and make those changes. Now, some other things that you might want to do is you might want to change the appearance of some other parts of the chart. And let me go over what some of the chart parts or chart elements are. This white area is called the plot area, all right, or the chart area. If you right-click on any of these areas, you're also going to get a shortcut menu as well. And the shortcut menu, especially towards the bottom, that's where it's going to indicate what area of the chart you clicked on. Now if I right click on this part, notice it says format data labels, or format data series. If I go ahead and click on the chart area, it says format chart area. So it does depend on what area that you're working on, or that you're right clicking on, will dictate what you'll see on that shortcut menu. Alright, so let's go ahead and let's work a little bit more here. We're going to come to the chart styles. The next thing I usually do before I start messing with individual elements is I check some of the different styles that are available. And these are really the sub-styles or the subcategories that you have to choose from. So within pie charts you have all of these different styles, and I really like this because they really give you a lot of different cool formatting features. Now this is no different than coming up here to the top underneath the Design tab and looking at all the different chart styles. So it's going to give you the same choices, and as you hover over, you're going to see a style number. So for those of you that may be doing some of the work from your book, a particular chart style, and it may say style number 3 or style number 4, this is what they're referring to. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and choose style number 7, and once I select that style, it's going to make all the changes. And you'll note on the right also in my style drop down menu as well. So you can go ahead and you can choose from the style button, or you can come up to the Design tab and choose from the chart styles listed as well. Okay, so we've got some changes made here. Now one of the other things we can do is chart filter. So I'm going to go ahead and click on chart filter, and this is a great tool to use when you're doing the what if analysis. You're saying, well, what if we didn't have any cash? Let's go ahead and focus on that one. We'll turn that off. Now in this case, for a pie chart, it doesn't make sense to turn off those categories. It's going to make more sense when we deal with line charts or column charts. But this is where you can do some of those what if analysis here. Now the other thing I want you to note is when you pull down any of these options from these buttons on the right, you'll also note that some of them will have some menus you can choose from, such as these are the values if you want to change the values, or if you want to change the names. So I can choose none, column A, so I can tell it where it's placed at. So again, keep that in mind. With each of these, you're going to have different options to choose from. These are styles. If I wanted to change just the colors, I can go ahead and choose a color theme. No different than coming up here to the Design tab, and to the left of chart styles, I can choose colors from here as well. So you pick and choose which place you want to work with, where those options are located. We go to the chart, we can see again we can turn any of these features on and off, and if you click on the arrow to the right, then you can go ahead and choose another location. Now something else you can also do is, I'm always clicking on and off, if I double click on the chart, it's going to pull up to the right the format chart area. Alright, so if you don't like working with those 3 buttons, you can choose the format chart area, and this is no different than going to the format button underneath your chart tools group. And you can click on the drop down to the right. This is the task pane if you want to move this around. And if you don't want to use the chart area, the format, what we call the format pane, you can go ahead and click on the X to close it. Now this is where these are going to change based on what you're going to be clicking on. So your chart options, if you want to work with the legend, I can click on legend, and then you notice now it says legend options. I can go ahead and click on the drop down at that point and make different changes to it. So for example, let's say I want to do chart title. Now I'm going to have some options to change the chart title. Let's go back to legends, and let's go ahead and we'll work with the fill color. So if I want to change the fill color, I can change that fill color. No fill color, and you can see it changing as I'm making the selection. And you click on the triangle just to collapse, and this is your expand and collapse button, just to collapse those choices. And we can go to border, and we'll go ahead and do a solid line around the border, and we'll go ahead and change it to white. And then we can make some more choices. As we scroll down, you can see some other choices that you have available to you. Let me go ahead and click off. Then if I'm done with the format pane, I can click on the X to close it. So some students that are just getting used to 2013 find this a little odd to follow at first. They may just come up to the Format tab and work with the Format tab up here. Keep in mind that if you're going to work with the Format tab to the left, this is where you make the selection of the various chart elements that you're going to be working on. You can see when I chose Legend, down in the chart it highlighted the legend. But I think you guys are really going to start to get used to just double clicking on the chart and then working through the format pane. It is pretty quick to work through, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. Now, one of the last things I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go ahead and move this chart, And I'm just going to click and drag anywhere on the chart. You don't want to click and drag on a particular element of the chart other than the chart area. That's the easiest. And if you hold down the Alt key, it's going to snap it to a grid line that you really can't necessarily see in the background. So this is something you can do. Pie charts are really fun to work with. Something else I do want to show you on pie charts that you'll be working on later on is how to explode a slice of the pie chart. So I'm going to click one time to select what we call the plot area or the data series. And I'm going to click a second time just to select the larger slice. And I'm going to keep the left mouse button down and drag it out of the way. So that's how you can explode sections of the pie chart as well. And if I double click on any of the elements within a chart, the nice thing about just double clicking on it is to the right you'll see that the format pane is displayed, but specifically showing you the options for that data point that you have selected. So I can angle the slice, I can increase and see how I'm rotating it around. I can explode it, and you can see how it's slowly dragging away. Or you can do what I just did previously, which is click once to select the plot area, or the data point, excuse me, and then click a second time to select that particular point, and I'm saying it wrong, I'm sorry, data series and then data point to explode it. So this whole thing is a data series because they represent one type of data. So that's the data series. A second click is the data point, which is that particular number within the spreadsheet that I can click and drag. So you can do it that way, or you can go ahead and work through the format pane on the right hand side. So this is really kind of fun to work with also. So that's the data series, and then you can also change the borders, and then you can add some enhancements to it if you want to. There's some 3D formatting if you want to do some 3D formatting with it. So you can do all sorts of really cool stuff with it if you want to. And then this one over here is again the series options, plot series, where you can angle the slices. Now when you do a 3D pie chart, you can actually rotate it as well. So that's something that you'll be doing later on. But have fun with this, just messing around with charts. And as you like what you're doing, Control S, Control S. So have a good time with it.